So, religion, huh? Whether you're world building the fantastical, the science fictional, or even some third broad stroke of genre, religion is one of the most fundamental pillars of any world building project. It determines how the characters view the universe, how they view themselves in relation to everything else, and can heavily influence what motivates each character.
Acre. Oh.
Now, I know the fun part of world building a religion might be coming up with the gods or pantheons or rituals, but first, I want to start off with how we can categorize all these religions. I like graphs. Let's make a graph. On the x axis, we have the spectrum of theism, from the sole monotheistic God of Judaism on the right, all the way to the pantheons of the Greeks and the Romans somewhere in the middle here. And all the way down on the left, we have the godless religions like Buddhism or even just plain modern atheism. On the y axis, however, we have the centralization spectrum, as I'm calling it. At the top, we have centralized, better known as organized religion, with its poster child, the Catholic Church. Somewhere more towards the middle, we have decentralized religions. This is why I'm not calling it organized, because disorganized would be a little harsh to say. Examples, though, are Baptists or non denominational Protestantism in general. And at the very bottom here, we have completely personal or non priest religions like some neo pagan or New Age spiritualist beliefs. To better explain, I'll delve into these concepts a little better here than just comparing to real world religions. So, what makes a religion centralized? I think the bottom rung of this ladder is if the believers meet together for some reason. Then, above that, if they meet together for rituals, is there a priest class in charge of doing said rituals? Do these priests meet together? Do they have a priest equivalent of middle management and a boss? Do these higher priests enforce dogma on the lower ones? One, to skip a few, and you've got an independent country who is run by the sole head of said religion, supported by vast seas of bureaucracy. I think the theism spectrum is a bit simpler to explain. It goes from no gods, no nothing, to spirits and ancestor worship, to differing degrees of powerful spirits, to many hyper specified gods. Think like a goddess of the local river or something along those lines, to a more whittled down pantheon. Maybe some gods get merged together with gods covering broader concepts. Maybe instead of just that local river, it's rivers in general, perhaps. Then you have people really elevating one god amongst the others, eventually to the point that they're really just worshiping that one god, but they still admit the other ones exist and all of that. And then finally, you get to the point where there's just the one true God, and all other gods are fake or demons or whatever. Graphs are cool and all, but why exactly does this matter? Right. Well, firstly, it's very handy to visually see where any religion you're coming up with stands here. It allows you to more so vibe the spot you want the religion to fill without going through and meticulously planning everything yet. Yet, that is, emphasis on the yet. Secondly, and depending on your story, most importantly, it can help you to see how easily a given character might be able to grasp or relate to the concept of another religion. You may have differing views on this, but I think there's probably some uncanny valley here with this graph, wherein if another religion is too similar but also too different at the same time, that many from one of those two religions would struggle in understanding the other one. Here, let me give you a few examples for illustrative purposes. We'll put one here, here, and there, I guess. So here we have three religions: the ultra centralized henotheists of bluism. Henotheists is a fun word for they really only worship one god, but they have a full pantheon. the community of redism's monotheists, and the semi personal way of greenism. Just by these basic architectures alone, you can assume that a greenist would be shocked by how rigid and controlling the other religions are, and vice versa, whereas a bluist may look down on a redist for being blind to all gods but their own. I'm sure there can be plenty more spectrums to pin religions onto, but I feel that these are the two real important broad strokes here. And also, if there were more than two, that would mean no more graphs, which is sad. Another big thing to take into account is more to do with how the religion reflects on the population. What does the top god say about the surrounding culture? In most cases, this could be pretty straightforward. Nature deity, well, then the people probably revere nature as sacred to some degree. This could also cause a taboo around certain things as well. Off the dome, maybe they refuse to use plows in farming because it's seen as scarring the earth or whatever your world is called. One trend the head deities seem to follow is being some flavor of law and order gods, at least in one of the distant articles of God of blah, 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 blah. You get the gist. Think in the vein of the Egyptian Ra, god of the sun and order, or the Greeks and Romans Zeus and Jupiter, respectively, being gods of thunder and to a degree order. And even Odin from Norse or Germanic pantheons is a god of war and to a more scant degree granted order. I think it mainly comes from the fact that this is just me. This is just me spitballing here. That if you're in charge of a full pantheon, you've got to keep the house in order somehow. And so naturally, you're prescribed as some sort of god of order or law or balance or etc., etc. Head gods in any given pantheon don't need to be static either. Odin is a good example of this, where, based on some prehistoric and linguistic evidence, it's believed that the original head of the Norse pantheon was actually Tyr. But over time, as cultures shifted into a more bellicose, warlike stance, their pantheon shifted alongside it, and Odin, formerly basically just the god of war, came to replace Tyr as the top dog. You can also get super regional with things too. Throughout human history, there's been different cultures that have viewed gods as intrinsically locked to a specific geographical region. For example, you could have a more minute god with power over storms, but only in this one specific region over here. Or this sea, or, oh, yeah, you could have a deity for each sea as well, too. Get creative with it. It's your world. Another thing that tends to go hand in hand with gods and religion is a good origin story or creation myth. Your creation story could be something like the Navajo story of humanity upsetting the balance in a world and then needing to flee to a new one, however many times you'd prefer. And Navajo beliefs, we're on attempt number 4 here. Or you could go with a more Abrahamic creation story wherein God creates the world, but humanity disobeys God and is trapped on earth, and they need to follow the set law or rules to be able to return to said creator. Or, last example here, you just don't have a creation myth. It doesn't have to matter. The last one probably works best in a reincarnation religion, since the world itself isn't really the focal point of anything here, but rather just the background to the never ending cycle of reincarnation. Now, these genesises can be a bit more fundamental to a character's worldview or the religion as a whole. In the Navajo example, the religion is going to place a bigger focus on being in balance with nature, and the Abrahamic one is much more focused on whatever code of conduct you come up with for your God's set of morality rules. All in all, I think these are some good basic ideas or questions to take into consideration when creating a religion for your world building project. To just give a brief summary of everything we've gone over here, here are the basic questions. We have, how is it structured? What is being worshipped? Who's at the top of the spiritual hierarchy? And finally, why did your world pop into existence? Now, thank you, everyone who has made it to the end of the video. Lovely, lovely people you are. And I hope you all have the bestest of days.